Good morning, YouTube. This is Daniel from the Sonic Decks, and I will be profiling to you my Bay deck, my Blue-Eyes White Dragon deck. Let's get right into it. So, to start off the deck, we are playing 3 Blue-Eyes White Dragons. Starter deck variants is always the best way to go. 3 Alternative Dragon. It's one of the best play starters in the deck. So what's different from this variant from the last one is I'm actually playing Chaos Maxx. A lot of people recommended I play this. I've been testing, going back and forth between taking it out and putting it back in. I definitely think since Masterpiece is definitely going to be a strong deck going into this format, I think Chaos Maxx is still definitely going to be really good because Masterpiece can't even touch this guy. Zoo is gone, so the main problem of this deck is actually gone. It adds a little something to the deck that I feel like it probably kind of needed. So I think 2 Chaos Maxx Dragons using this variant might be the better one to go with in the future, but I'm not sure. You know, we're going to go back and forth between this and just decide from there. 1 Spirit of White, 2 is Cloggy. You see it way too much in this variant. If you're playing a pure variant, definitely play 2, but in this variant, I think just playing 1 is perfectly fine. For the tuners, you do play 3 Ancient Stones and 1 Legendary Stone. This is kind of standard. You don't need to say too much about that. 3 Sage, sorry for the mismatching rarity, but Sage, once again, super important to this deck. It also helps, we actually use the second effect a lot more than its summon effect, because Manju is our preferred summon, so being able to summon a Blue Eyes off of this is actually really, really good. 2 Manju, like I said, we don't really want to see 3, we don't care to see 3 that often. 2 just searches whatever we need, and it is perfectly fine. 1 Veiler main decked because it's searchable, and we could easily put in more or side out. Just depends on what we need for our matchup. 1 Maxx C because Maxx C is really good in this type of deck. That's it for the monsters. It's a decent sized monster lineup. For the spells, which is the most important part of the deck, we play 3 Melody Awakening Dragon, main search card of the deck, one of the main starter cards of the deck. Searches literally any of our dragons, super good. 3 Trade-In, ditches any of our dead dragons that we don't need in our hand. That's all we need to say. One of the best draw cards in the deck. 3 Pot of Desires, we finally play 3 in this deck. Being able to just see this card as much as possible, get as much draws as physically possible, and boost consistency, whatever we can do. And I finally maxed out on Advanced Ritual Art. I was convinced at a tournament that playing 3 of this is a lot better than just playing 1 or 2. Being able to see it as much as possible so that we can summon our Chaos Maxx as physically possible is really good. And also we don't have to worry about banishing it off of Desires if we so do. So I think 3 is pretty good. And also it sends dragons to the graveyard, so that's why we like it. 3 Return of the Dragon Lords, best revival card of the deck. Absolutely busted. Protects our dragons in the graveyard. Summons a dragon from the graveyard. Super good. I love this card. 1 Silver Scribe. Basically just another revival card. Super good. 1 Chaos Form. If you wanted to play 2, you could, but I think 1 does the job perfectly fine so that we don't have to worry about seeing it too much. We see it just right. 1 Cards of Consonance because we play 4 little rock tuners. And 1 Soul Charge. Almost considerably the auto win. A lot more effective now that Chaos Maxx is in the deck. 3 traps in the form of 1 Strike, 1 Warning, and 1 Order. If you so chose, you could play D-Barriers instead, but this is just what I've chosen for my trap lineup. That's the main deck. It's 42 cards. For the extra deck, we do play 2 Dragon Spirit of Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragons. Don't really need to say too much about that. It's pretty standard. 1 Azure-Eyes. You don't need 2. 1 is perfectly fine. You actually don't always even go into this that often anymore because it doesn't really extend. It just helps you win next turn. 1 Crystal Wing. Thanks AJ for allowing me to get my hands on one of these. Basically being able to end a board with Chaos Maxx and Crystal Wing is super strong. Stardust Spark helps make rank 8 plays if we need it. Ancient Fairy Dragon. This specifically helps us make Crystal Wing really fast, and I like this a lot. 1 Black Rose Moonlight. This is really good disruption on the opponent's turn. Michael. This is really good going second. Allows us to banish cards on And then for the XYZs, we do play 1 Dark Matter Dragon with the rest of the Galaxy package to basically go into stuff. Galaxy-Eyes Cyber Dragon is actually really cool because you can use this to steal a Link monster, put it into the zone that's adjacent from that, and use their arrows to take their other extra deck zone. So I think that's why a little cute interaction that this thing can do, and I think that's actually super cool. 1 Heliopolis. Board wiping is pretty strong, and this really helps get rid of Masterpiece. 1 Alce. Being able to lock our opponent on just 1 single card is actually really strong. This helps me. It comes in clutch every now and then. And of course, 1 Hope Harbinger, probably one of the best XYZs in this deck, and you always want to end the field with one of these. And that's it for the deck.
Tell them about the Bandai Blue Eyes.
Oh yeah, so I went to a locals recently, and this is what I've been using to divide my middle columns with. And a lot of people thought this was really, really cool, and I always use this as my token. This is probably one of my favorite things about this deck, and one of my favorite parts of my collection. And I'm really happy I have my hands on this, and I'll be using this as my divider. This is AJ's that we got at the same time, and I'll be using this as my column dividers from now on. My Blue Eyes deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it. This is my favorite deck of all time. I've been really messing with this deck a lot recently. I almost am considering taking this to Dallas because it is just my favorite deck to play. And around the end of last format, all I ever really wanted to play was Blue Eyes because Zodiac was really just making everything so boring. So Blue Eyes is all I really wanted to play. And Blue Eyes, if built right, can really counter just the top decks right now. And in Link format, the deck is actually pretty strong because the deck doesn't need a heavy extra deck base, and Chaos Max just boosts your ability to not need the extra deck as heavily as you used to. So it's really strong. I think it could be a strong competitor for the meta, and I think it has the capability to top some regionals and maybe even do well at some other bigger events. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you leave me some feedback of what you think of this deck in the comments. Thank you.